Hi, it's Rob Fisher from RedStack here. Thanks for joining us for today's webinar on collaborating with BIM. I've got Bill Adams here who'll be presenting the webinar today, which will be recorded, so no need to note everything down. We will send out a link to the recording after the event. If you have any questions or comments as we go, then please type those into your chat window or the question window, and we'll try and answer those as we go. We'll also take questions at the end. So I'm going to hand over to Bill. Bill's our application engineer. He specialises in building design and is one of Australia's first Revit users, has a great deal of experience amongst his many other fantastic attributes, and being involved with Autodesk user groups and various associations for quite a few years. He's got a great deal of experience that he's ready to share with you today. So there's some fantastic things happening in the collaboration space as BIM continues to progress, and we look forward to sharing some of that with you now. So I'll hand over to you, Bill.
Thank you very much, Rob. It's a very nice intro. Welcome, everybody. Okay, so collaborating with BIM. Architects, building designers and engineers, be they structural, mechanical, electrical or whatever, have always had sort of challenges coordinating these sort of different disciplines within the building project. Each discipline has a different perspective and priorities, and sort of that must be reflected into the to the finished building. Make it all work. Sort of collaboration between all parties is key. So thanks to sort of 3D building information modelling programs, or BIM as it is now known, the stages of design are shifting from a document-based project phases to a more conceptual, schematic design development and construction documents into a more collaborative model-based approach. Using design tools such as Revit and other collaborative environments available from the cloud, project teams can now update models in real time, discuss design changes and manage structural, MEP or even architectural models, and eliminate clashes very early in the design stage. So using BIM in the cloud is helping all team members collaborate more easily and in a more timely fashion. To this end, Autodesk has had a series of applications. Originally it was called Autodesk 360. It is now generally called, Autodesk 360 is now called A360 Drive. And A360 Drive is a file storage and sharing product. It's generally based on a particular user, but they can invite others to participate. And generally you'll find that your URL, which is sort of up in your web browser, generally starts with 360.autodesk.com, and then it changes from there. Since then, they've had another version called A360 and A360 Team. A360 is a cloud-based collaboration platform. It can provide design and engineering teams a centralized platform where they can work together on projects more efficiently. A360 has a free and paid version. When you're using A360, you get a web location called a hub. On your personal hub, you can create and manage projects and data, and then the A360 Team is the paid version of the A360. On a Team Hub, you can create an unlimited number of projects, you can leverage more capabilities, and in addition, so the image that you can see on screen is actually a Team Hub. You can have access to calendars and wikis and things like that. So I'm just going to try and briefly switch to this online to show you a little bit more about between the two of them. So just bear with me a moment. So here I'm actually showing the A360 drive. You can access all your sort of information. I'll just pick on one file. It sort of loads up. And then it can sort of show you some information about what is in the various viewing areas. So we've got 3D viewing, we can look at sort of exteriors, floor plans, in all of its views of the Revit model. And even if we switch to a view, I can very quickly load it. And so non-Revit users can very easily view this data and sort of make comments. If I switch over to the A360 drive, I can sort of log into various projects. I can have that collaborate with various team members. On this one, I've just sort of set this one up between myself privately and some work colleagues here in the office. Data. I'll go to that one. And if I open up this particular file, again, it sort of opens up as a generic view. It's the standard 3D view. The advantage of the new preview, I can have various aspects where I can actually walk through or zoom in, pan around the camera. I can also explode the model if I like, and sort of pull it apart and look further into it. So that's not too bad. I can also look at some various properties, some information of it, where it exists. If I look at sort of other, I can also look at its sheets that it may exist. And so I can sort of look at information that's sort of based on that particular application. So again, it's used for collaborating with the engineers, clients who may not necessarily, or certainly don't have any skill sets to use Revit, so they can sort of start to see bits and pieces of what it all is doing. So at some point, when a project becomes sort of too large for any one particular person, or you require 2 or more individuals on a team, you generally require, or you generally sort of enable work sets in your Revit project. Once the work set project has been enabled, the project file, which we'll call the central file, is saved on our local data server within our own local area network, or LAN as we sort of call it. From that point, each individual opens up the central file on the data server. However, Revit doesn't open up that central file. Instead, Revit automatically creates a copy of the central file on the individual's workstation, which we call local files. So as the day progresses, the local file on each client workstation becomes out of sync with the central file, and therefore from time to time we synchronize each local file with the central file. Generally, load and speed syncs are generally relatively quick within the LAN because the data is close to the end user. But what happens if you wish to collaborate with 2 offices within your own company? So, for instance, we could be working in our main office here in Adelaide, and we want to share, or we have individuals that will also be contributing to this project in Melbourne. So over a wide area network, or WAN, speeds and loads can be a bit slower depending on your system. So generally, Revit Server is then initiated. Revit Server allows geographically distributed project team members to work simultaneously on a Revit project file. So Revit Server allows 2 or more servers to communicate across this WAN or wide area network by caching or replicating the data from one server to the other. So each office installs a Revit server or a single instance of the Revit server on their data servers, and then this creates the Revit server network. This network that's in your offices is dependent on what each role is assigned to the Revit server. So in Adelaide, we could be that could be playing the host and the administrator role, while the Revit server in Melbourne could be playing just a role of an accelerator, and I'll explain what those two mean a bit later on. All this means is the central files for every project would live in the Adelaide office and then would be cached or replicated to the Melbourne office. Now, alternatively, both servers could be set up as host and accelerator, depending on how you wish to sort of install the product. Now, administration of the server or in the network is generally done through a browser application, and administrators can here manage the central files. And typically you would access it by entering a Revit server admin 2015 or 16, whatever, depends on the application you have installed. Now, the collaborative effort between home and satellite offices begins by making sure each install of Revit is connected to the appropriate Revit server. And then acceleration is done by the Collaboration tab on the ribbon within Revit. And it's sort of crucial that you have underlying connectivity. When you sort of set up your Revit server, you have what's known as an RSN or Revit Server Network INI file. It's a text file stored in your on your systems, which lists all the names and IP addresses of all the hosts and accelerators within the network. Now, this RSN INI file must live on the Revit server for it to work effectively. Once the Revit server is connected, each instance of Revit needs to be connected to that local server accelerator. And then if you expand on your Manage tab, on the Collaborate tab in the Manage connection, you can then access to the Revit server accelerator. From here on in, the end user would enter the name or IP address of the accelerator, which is closer to them, and then that would be their local Revit server. And then once you've done that, you just sort of select the connect button, and away you go. Now, typically, the process of work sets still remains, or enabling work sets remains unchanged, but saving the central file is now slightly different. The end user would save the central file using a save, and then you would then sort of select your project, and then in the places area or on the place list of the save as, instead of selecting a folder name, you actually select Revit server. You then browse directly to your Revit server host, and then eventually you would save the project as, and away you go. So it's not that much of a change, it's just something a little bit different. When you're opening files again, it's again slightly different. You would open a project, you select Revit server on the place list, and then you finally then get the place list then hooks into the Revit server network. You select your appropriate file, and Revit typically creates then a new local file, and then you sort of select open and start working on it as normal. Now, during the day-to-day operations, users will synchronize or reload their latest work. And so in Adelaide, the Revit server hosts the central files, making syncs direct. Although in Melbourne, users would synchronize their work with their cached data on their Revit server, which is an accelerator, and then the accelerator communicates this data between the cache model in Melbourne and the actual central file in Adelaide. So Revit server allows or provides an environment for multiple offices to share work on in one single project. Now, whilst Revit server is a very powerful tool for designing and working on projects and creating models, it has some other challenges. And so some projects, well, most projects require more than just designing. There's a whole host of manual tasks that take time, to things like printing, exporting information, model sharing, data sheet generation, and not every project stakeholder has access to Revit, or sometimes even the skills to need or use the system. So from time to time, you may need to sort of come up with another way of assistance in your collaborative process. There's also some areas of which also is of a concern is security. With Revit Server, whilst it is possible to share data with different stakeholders, the security model allows all participants to see all folders and all projects, which may or may not be a desired circumstances. So Imaginate Clarity has been developed to sort of further assist in this area. So it sits on top of Revit Server. It allows people to provide additional functionality to the Revit Server. It can be set up to do manual tasks and automate manual tasks. So, for example, printing sheets can take, depending on the size of the project, can lock up a computer for hours. So you can set this up to run or print sheets off automated at a time that's best suited for you. Other areas that you might data sheets can be set up to sort of be connected, and also you can, with Imaginate Clarity, liberate more information from the model. So you can generate a whole host of reports on door schedules, material quantities, room contents, room occupants, finishes, things of that nature. So I had briefly mentioned data sheets. Generally, room and furniture data sheets can be provided now during the modelling process automatically, and a lot of clients, healthcare and educational organisations, for example, need to sort of view this as the project progresses to make sure that specific criteria may necessarily be met. And so you can provide this online sort of PDF data sheet that people can view and make sure that the right information is in the right room even before construction begins. So, and within Imaginate Clarity Connect, you can assign various roles to various peoples to make sure that only those people who have been allowed access can see the information that they can. So project participants only see the models and files that are relevant to them. So Clarity Connect offers project level and role-based security. This means, or this allows team members to see only the information that has been assigned. And visibility into projects helps stakeholders get them involved earlier, resulting in more accurate projects that are delivered at a faster time frame. So this is quite good, but there is other areas where whilst Revit Server and Clarity is assisting with Revit to sort of facilitate collaboration, there are other areas where it's not only CAD files that can be, that are often provided. So there's Revit files, there could be Navisworks files, and there's also a plethora of Word documents, Excel files, there might be emails and things like that. Vault Professional is an application, and its main role is to manage all this information. So Vault doesn't actually work on the Revit project file. That's the job of Revit Server or ImagineIt Clarity Connect. Vault tracks and manages all the internal information as well as any inbound and outbound data regarding to the project. This can also include managing consultants' models and other CAD files that are linked to the central file, any Word documents, Outlook, Excel, spreadsheets, content libraries, and of the like. So Vault accomplishes this by recording a version history of every file that it stores through a check-in, check-out process which is initiated by the user. Access can be granted through the company, throughout the company through the Vault's various roles and permissions that are set up. And last but not least, Vault allows you to do a search of those files through its organised indexing system. So Vault accomplishes this in two ways. It has two main components, a Vault Server application and the Vault clients. The Vault Server is typically installed on a dedicated Windows server. The second component is that of the Vault client. That is like a desktop application which allows users to access the client. Now, in many of the applications that Autodesk provides, if you have Vault Professional, you can get a list of integrated applications. So in Revit, you can get a button on the ribbon that sort of allows you access to the Vault, checking it in, checking out in Navisworks and in AutoCAD, and also in the various levels of Vault Professional. So Revit Server and Vault Professional work together to extend data management to a server-based work sharing process. So like the Revit Server network mentioned previously, the primary Vault server, or as it's called, the ADMS, would live in the Adelaide office, and its replicated file server, or file store I should say, listed as the ADFS, would live in the Melbourne office. So Adelaide and Melbourne would communicate through the primary Vault server in the Adelaide office. The files are then replicated from the Adelaide file store to the Melbourne file store. And then typically then you would then sort of access through the various file stores to access through the Revit Server application. So Revit communicates with the Vault, which then reaches out to the Revit Server to deliver a local file to each client via an established file mapping system. From here, Revit Server-based work sharing commences as usual. There is a central file on the Revit Server networks which manages all syncing to central and element or workset permissions. Once Revit Server is tasked with the work sharing workflow, Vault oversees all other aspects of the Revit project workflow. Revit links are one such application or one such function that Vault can manage, in addition to the general models or CAD files from outside consultants. They're also stored on the Vault area as they are received. So Vault Professional allows or offers AEC companies a powerful data management system tool that can work seamlessly within Revit to enhance the tedious workflows of all that data management. And as the company becomes more versed in integrating Vault, additional areas of the Vault workflows can be implemented, for example, like life cycle analysis. On another area that hopefully will be available soon within Australia and New Zealand is A360 Collaboration for Revit. It is a cloud-based collaboration system, and for most Revit, or for most of us seasoned Revit users, work sharing is often a part of daily life. When you're typically you're just performing concurrent edits on your own models. Now, up until recently, most of these methods have been based on an on-premise scenario. Even with Revit Server, whilst we've extended work sharing over a wide area network, this is still just an adaptation of an on-premise work sharing. So neither methods really solve the issue of working either on the model from home or from even remotely. And if we had external partners, they sort of didn't really do anything to that. Now, Autodesk has developed this application called A360 Collaboration for Revit. It changes work sharing from a locally collaborative to a socially shared. It's cloud-based. So Autodesk has moved all the central files to a common location in the cloud, so that one can collaborate more easily virtually anywhere, provided we have an internet connection and entitlements to the service. It generally works through a bundled service. Autodesk 360 Collaboration for Revit works in tandem with the A360 Team Project Collaboration Platform. This team collaboration is typically a subscription-based service, and generally you access your A360 Team Hub after you've sort of paid for your subscription to A360 Collaboration for Revit. Certainly a mouthful, I must say. So once the Team Hub has been created, the Team Hub associates people, projects, and then you have a series of roles and permissions that each member can be assigned. So with the Team Hub, project and team membership can establish once it has been established, you can then turn your attention to Revit. Within Revit, there are some noticeable differences on the Collaborate tab. There are now some new changes to the ribbon. The Work Sets button will be disabled, and a new Collaborate button is available. And you now can have a Manage Collaboration tab, and so you can collaborate that way. And then a new Communicate panel is now visible and can contain editing requests, so you can now communicate. There is also a Manage Models button, which sort of can show history and how you manage your A360 models. Once you sort of enter a A360 Revit project, a new communicator panel becomes active, which is sort of enables a live chat feed to all members that can share communications in real time. So depending on the model activities, these can be managed typically by the Manage A360 Models button on the Manage Models panel. You can view version lists of all versions of the model, and each sync creates a new version. The version will capture then date, time, and member's name as appropriate. Within the models on A360, team members can now work from home or or anywhere without the risk of sort of issues that were used using traditional work sharing methods. Another benefit of the team members and project collaboration not using Revit is they can now view all the Revit models from within the workstation, laptop, or mobile apps device. The applications can be used on an iPad or even Google Android. So in conclusion, A360 for Revit, when it eventually becomes available in Australia, I believe will mature and solve more main collaborative pains in Revit and the AEC workflow and bring members closer together than ever before. Thank you for your attendance today.